Have you ever been in a situation in which you really needed to find some answers to your burning breastfeeding questions, yet it seemed like everyone you asked wasn't taking you seriously or didn't understand the gravity of your situation or the gravity of your concerns? My guest today shares an incredible story of experiencing breastfeeding difficulties and really being gaslit by her providers. And she really had to take some extreme measures to get the care she needed. And that's why I do this podcast. That's why I'm a lactation consultant, because these stories happen far too often. And then that implants a seed of doubt that something we are doing is wrong. Something we have done has caused this situation. So welcome to the Milk Making Minutes. I'm your host, Lo Nigrosh, International Board Certified Lactation Consultant, on a mission to make feeding human milk to our human babies that much easier.
Okay, I am Ellie. I have two kids. One is almost 2, and the other one is almost 2 weeks. So we're gonna be telling the story of my first kids, my breastfeeding story, pretty much. I'm the oldest of a lot of kids, the oldest of 14, and
Wow.
um, I'm really glad that my mom was up here when I had him. Um, but I still had issues, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you have your littlest one with you right now, so we might hear some
yes,
baby noises. Yeah.
yes,
Baby noises are always welcome on the Milk Making Minutes.
good.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah. So, we are going to hear your first story on this episode, but then everybody should come back for the second episode for this week because you have some questions or some concerns. I don't even really know yet about your current baby feeding situation. And so we're going to do a recorded consultation, virtual consultation. So I'm really excited to get to both hear your first story and then um, see if we can help you feel even better about your current baby feeding experience.
that sounds good. I hope so.
Yeah. Okay. So you've already told me you were the oldest of 14 kids. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I want to take you back into your childhood. Having been the oldest of 14 kids, what exposure did you have to baby feeding as a young child yourself?
Well, my mom pretty much only breastfed like all of us. So, I say pretty much because I think like one or two times she had to do something in the hospital and like she couldn't like nurse for a day, but that was it. Other than that, she breastfed all of us. So that's what I grew up with. I didn't even know almost anything about formula feeding till I was an adult because I wasn't exposed to it. Um, and my mom was mostly at home. She just worked part time every once in a while. And so I just knew that the moms have the kids, the moms breastfeed them, and that's how I grew up. So now that I'm in my 30s, everyone's talking about how old that is and how that women are expected to do all this stuff that's so outdated. And I just grew up with it. But
Are those the messages that you're getting where you live that that you're too old or that because you said everyone says you're too old or that it's hard like people have to breastfeed? Are those the messages
like,
that you've been getting?
not necessarily that I'm too old to breastfeed, that breastfeeding is an old thing and that, formula is the new thing and women should have their freedom. I get that message from some people around here, but uh, and my church is pretty good. I think most of the people in my church breastfeed, and so that's a good environment too. So,
Okay. All right, great. So you probably being the oldest of 14, what's the spread between you and like the youngest?
Uh, it's around 24 years. So
Mm.
that's pretty accurate. 24 years.
Okay, great. Yeah. Yeah. So you probably have like pretty visceral memories, active memories of seeing your mom breastfeed babies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome.
A lot of memories.
And do you think that has impacted your breastfeeding journey in any way?
I just think it was a good example, and I'm glad that she did. And I helped her with mastitis before because she had mastitis at least a couple times with almost all the kids.
Mm.
And she would never get it like real bad where she'd get clogged ducts and stuff, but she still would have a fever and she would need help. She couldn't really get out of bed. And I'd get her cabbage leaves and whatever else. And so I remember that too. And she kept breastfeeding and she was able to keep breastfeeding. And so it was all a really good example, I think, for me.
How geographically close do you live to your mom?
We live a couple states away. So
Okay.
a little bit. It's like 14-ish hour drive. So
Mhm. And has she been able to give you good advice and support throughout your breastfeeding journeys?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then do you have other siblings who also have kids?
I do. I have my one closest sister and she has two kids and she breastfed both of them. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. That's great. And how old is your first child?
He is almost two. Actually, is today his? I don't even know. Today's his birthday. He's two
Oh my
today.
goodness. That's amazing. That shows what a fog you can be in this immediate postpartum period that you're like, "Oh my gosh, it's my 2-year-old's birthday today."
Well, I knew it was like either today or tomorrow, and I was like, wait, I got to see what the date is, but it's today. Yes.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so, tell me when you were pregnant with your first, what sort of preparation did you do, if any, for baby feeding?
Well, I guess I don't know if I did a lot of really specific stuff just for baby feeding, but I mean, I did try to eat really good. I've usually, we had our own chickens and I mostly, ate those eggs. And I have a friend on a farm that we get, fresh milk from and I get meat from her too. And they butcher their animals and chickens and stuff. And, just like, I think eating healthy has a lot to do with it. I think that's kind of all the preparation I did though. I didn't really research a lot about after you have your baby. I was very worried about how the pregnancy was going to go. Well, I was so sick. I threw up a
Mm,
lot. Um,
mhm,
I only had like the last couple months where I had any brain at all. I
mm,
didn't really read a lot or do a lot for after the birth, but I think eating pretty good I did that. That's about it.
great. Alright, so then jump right into what it was like for you the first time around.
Um, well, I guess I didn't expect it to be very hard. At least I thought it might not get hard for a while. Like I said, I'd seen my mom have mastitis before, but I was like, well, I just have one kid and I should, I don't have other kids to run after. Um, but it just seemed like there was a problem on one side, like very close to the beginning. And I wasn't sure why. And then I'm trying to, Google, what do you do? And I couldn't find a lactation consultant in my area. I didn't know at the time really that you could do a lot online with lactation consultants. I am very technologically incompetent and I didn't even think about the fact that people do videos and stuff. And so I
Yeah.
kept looking for lactation consultants in my area and didn't find anybody. And then I ended up going to the hospital because I felt like I had to ask somebody. I felt like something was really wrong. One side he was maybe around a month old. I've been trying to breastfeed on that side. I just ended up trying to keep pumping because he wouldn't even nurse on it anymore. And I was crying all the time. It was bleeding
Mm,
and everything. It was so bad. So he was nursing on
mm,
one side, and I was just trying to pump on the other side, and just everything was hard. It felt really hard. I knew something
mm.
was wrong with it.
The
And
whole breast or concentrated to one area?
it was a lot of it was hard.
Mhm, mhm,
At least half of it, I felt like.
mhm,
And so I knew that I was a brand new mom. I'd never breastfed before, but I was like, something's wrong. And I don't go to the hospital. Like, I've had home births, so this is the first time I went to the hospital. And I asked for a woman doctor because I thought a woman would listen to me. Um, and so then she asked me what I've been doing. And I said I've been doing all this stuff. I'm doing some stuff with oils, and I had read about sunflower lecithin and how that can thin out your milk a little bit. And I thought maybe that'll help. And so I was taking sunflower lecithin, and I was massaging, and I was soaking it in Epsom salt water and massaging. And what else was I doing? Heat, and just like everything I had read that I was doing all of it. Put cabbage leaves on it. I didn't know if that was helping or not, but I was trying everything that anyone had ever told me and everything I could find. So
mhm.
then she pretty much said, "Nope, you're just a brand new mom, and you just need to make sure you must not be massaging it enough, and nothing's really wrong," and sent me home. And
Mm.
I did well. No, I think she gave me a prescription for antibiotics. She's Yeah, because okay, she made me feel so dumb. And then at the end, she said, like, well, I guess if it'll make you feel better, I'll give you antibiotics. And like, I felt like she shoved me out the door. And then I really felt like I must be really dumb that I can't even massage it right. And that's what's wrong. And so I like went home and cried
Ugh.
and just felt like an incompetent human being. And then everything was getting more painful. Everything was really hot and red. And I'm like, no, I think something is wrong. Like, and I called my grandma, who was a nurse for 50 years. And I said, "You've got to know people. You've got to know doctors. Who can I talk to?" And so she got me in with her personal doctor. And it's how far is it away? Like Bismarck's like 140 miles from me or something. And so I made
Mm.
it down there with a brand new baby, and I really wasn't doing good. I definitely had a fever. I definitely was sick. I don't even know if I should have driven, but I mean, I had to do something. I asked her if I should go back to that doctor and tell them they missed something, and she said, "Don't even go back. Go to somebody else." So I went to her doctor, who did an exam and said, "Yeah, something's definitely really wrong. We're going to get you an ultrasound, but I think you have an abscess." And I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what that meant. And so she couldn't get
Mm.
me an ultrasound that day because it was like I got the last appointment of the day. She stayed late for me. It was like, 5:20. Everyone went home. And so then they wanted me to stay in Bismarck like 2 days so I could get an ultrasound. They didn't, apparently, I don't know I don't remember what, but I said, "I'm not going to stay in Bismarck. Is there any way I can just get an ultrasound?" There's one other clinic. I didn't want to go back to the hospital. There's one other clinic that did ultrasounds. So I got an ultrasound, and it was a huge abscess. And like I said, I didn't know exactly what that meant, but everyone was saying it was really bad. And
And
then
nobody was explaining what an abscess was
they
or
told
how.
they told me some, but like I said, I was in such a brain fog, and I was just so sick that
Mhm,
I don't remember exactly what they said.
mhm.
But I was definitely infected. Like I said, I took the antibiotics that the one doctor gave me, and they put me on more antibiotics before I got the ultrasound. And so then it took me over a week to get into surgery. And I got into surgery at that hospital, where I had the checkup with my grandma's doctor and in Bismarck. And that lady that did the surgery said it was one of, if not the biggest breast abscess she'd ever done, and she didn't know how it wasn't septic.
Mm.
And so, yeah, he was less than 3 months old, just a little over 2.5 months old, I think, at this point. And
Mm.
so, this is the
And how
beginning of my
long
breastfeeding journey.
Yeah. How long do you think it went on from, like, the time you first started to notice symptoms till when you finally had the surgery?
It was at least 2 months.
Oh my gosh. So it started almost, like, right away,
Yeah.
feeling
So I don't,
feeling some
and that's what made me think
engorgement.
that. I'm like, I must have done something wrong. And
Oh.
people tell me that no, you didn't do anything wrong. I don't know. So,
Mhm.
but
And
then,
what makes are you able to believe them when they tell you that?
well, I was wondering if I did anything wrong because like who gets mastitis so bad they get an abscess like less than a month after they have a baby. I figured I did something wrong. I don't know. But I guess everyone doubts themselves.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but then yeah, that side was dried up. And I didn't know if I would be able to nurse on it again or if there were going to be problems or what. Um, but so I remember crying when I ordered some formula because I was not producing enough on the other side. I was like nursing him and then pumping like an hour later and then nursing him and pumping like an hour later and nursing him, and it wasn't enough. And there's this part of me that felt like I was a bad mom, but then that's it's not true. But so I like looked up organic formulas and bought one, and we just used it a little bit, but um was that moment where like I was going to breastfeed and I'm still breastfeeding mostly, but this is not what I planned. So it was really emotionally hard. Um, but then I started feeding him some things like applesauce, and like I would make stuff and puree it. Everyone talks about how they had to have baby food. I eat a lot of stuff like steamed carrots and sweet potatoes and mashed potatoes, and I would just give him some of that. And so I never bought baby food. And then, I didn't buy any more formula after that because he was still nursing and that was enough. So,
This is such a heartbreaking story because you were looking for the right help, right? You were looking for IBCLCs and you could not find any in your area. Are you in a rural area?
I'm in rural North Dakota, but even in Minot, North Dakota is the area I was looking for any lactation
Uh-huh.
in anybody, and I didn't find anything. Um,
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And so you were looking for the help. You knew something was wrong. You went to a professional. You even thought to ask for a woman doctor and thinking that she might take your concerns a little more seriously and know a little bit more. And you left that experience not only not getting the proper help you needed, but feeling worse about yourself.
yeah,
Uh, then when you went in, still feeling like you just must be crazy or you weren't massaging correctly. I mean,
yeah,
I can't even believe that someone told you that with so many severe symptoms that had lasted for so long. So I just wanna acknowledge for a minute that you did the right thing. As a brand new breastfeeding mom, there is no way you should have been expected to know what caused that or how to get better. That's what the professionals in your life are for. And it's interesting that you saw your mom deal with mastitis so frequently. So you even probably had a bit more experience than most of us who go through that do. Yet it still became so difficult for you because you were just allowed to fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you were getting support from her, even if she wasn't right there, I'm sure she was trying to give you the best information she had based on what she had experienced all those years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is incredible. And so do you know how big the abscess ended up being? Like, centimeters across or size of a golf ball or any comparison you can give
I
us?
think it was close to the size of a baseball.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And
Yeah.
so they removed the abscess and then there was probably some wound care afterwards.
Yes. So they had to leave a hole and you had to put wet gauze in it and pull it out and replace it twice a day so that it could heal from the inside out. And
Yeah.
so I stayed at my grandma's house uh, for I don't know how many days. It was almost a week, I think, till I was able to drive the 140 miles back home myself. And then uh, a couple days later, my husband and I went to go see my parents, and I stayed there for about a month. And my mom did my wet gauze twice a day. So
Oh, awesome. Was it painful to remove it and put it back in?
it was more painful right away, and then you get used to it a little bit, but
Mhm.
um, it wasn't fun.
No.
Yeah, but I mean, I was
Okay.
thankful that it turned out okay. I could have been worse. So
Yeah, it could have been worse because of the negligence of the care providers around you. Seriously.
yeah,
Uh, you may be interested. I can send you a link later, but episode 65 of the Milk Making Minutes featured somebody else who had a very large abscess and was not taken seriously by care providers and really had to fight to get the care that she needed and did go on to have a successful breastfeeding journey on one side. But again, it could have been mediated, it could have been prevented. She was trying to get the care she needed, and she was not taken seriously.
yeah. Well, yeah, I was able to breastfeed him on one side until he was about 19 months old. I breastfed him. So
Wow, that's incredible. Before you started to feel the symptoms of engorgement, mastitis, knowing that something wasn't right, would he feed on both sides?
um, he did. I feel like he never liked that left side as well, and so that's
Mhm.
why I was like, I did something wrong. I should have made him nurse on it better. I don't know,
Yeah, yeah.
but
It's common for babies to have a preferred side, or even if a baby doesn't have a preferred side, it's common for the parent to have a preferred side that just feels better while nursing, either because they're able to use their dominant hand a little bit more easily or because it just feels awkward one side or the other. Did you
yeah,
experience a lot of pain breastfeeding in the first couple of weeks before that started?
yeah, there was some. Yeah, I mean, nipples getting used to it and everything
Okay. So
wasn't
there
easy.
was
So,
nipple pain.
yes, there was.
Okay. Okay, okay. That's helpful to know. And was the nipple pain such that you had any cracking or bleeding or
Yeah,
blisters on the nipples?
yeah, there was cracking and bleeding. And I used
Okay.
nipple shields for a while, and then some people tell you that nipple shields help, and then after I don't remember how much later, maybe he was a year old, whatever, I had started reading. Some people said that nipple shields could make some people's mastitis worse. And so then, that just feeds into my what if it made mine worse using a nipple shield? I don't know. Just,
Mm, mm, mhm,
but
mhm. I just wanna reiterate, you did nothing wrong. Using a nipple shield because your nipples are in pain and you're trying to not be in pain is a completely reasonable avenue to try to take, especially when there's no one around who can give you the support that you're looking for. So that is quite reasonable. When it comes to the nipple shield and the ideas that are floating around out there, nipple shields used to be made out of thicker material, and so it was more of a barrier between the breast and the baby's mouth, and it it did used to be thought that using a nipple shield could mean that not as much milk is being transferred. But the materials that nipple shields are made of now are so thin that when you look at evidence-based research where they monitor use of nipple shields and milk output and the ability of the baby to transfer, it really doesn't seem to have much of an impact. Now, the thing that people should keep in mind when using nipple shields is that if a person is using a nipple shield, it's either because baby won't latch without it or because you're in severe pain. And these are signs that there is something going on, that either position needs to be adjusted, the latch needs to be adjusted. And by position, it could be the maternal position, it could be the infant position, or it could indicate that something is going on inside of the baby's mouth that is making it difficult for them to get the nipple into the mouth far enough back that it's not rubbing the hard palate. Because when nipples are in such severe pain, it is often because the nipple is rubbing the hard palate, which usually means that there is not enough breast tissue getting into the mouth to make the nipple go far enough back that it's only going to touch the soft palate. So using a nipple shield is a great tool, but I always tell people it's helping you get through whatever symptoms are happening while you're problem solving why you need to use it in the first place. But if you just use a nipple shield and don't get the additional help, sometimes it will work itself out as baby grows and their mouth gets bigger and you get better at positioning, but sometimes it doesn't. So just knowing that it's usually meant to be a stopgap measure is what
yeah.
should be kept in mind. But nipple shields in and of themselves are not problematic. It's just making sure that people are getting the support that goes along with needing to use the nipple shield.
Well, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So you used the nipple shield, and then as he got you get through this horrible abscess situation. Did they talk to you at all during the surgery about what it would mean for your mammary glands and your milk ducts for nursing future kids?
Um, they just said they couldn't tell me for sure um what would happen, but the surgeon did say that she thought I could nurse again, but she said you'll know when you have another kid and you try breastfeeding. I can't tell you 100%. So,
Mhm.
um I'm glad she was honest about that. And I just, yeah, it was dried up at that point. At least she's like, at the very least, it's dried up. She didn't think anything was like ruined forever, hopefully, but
Yeah, yeah. Was she able to tell you how? Because you said it was baseball sized, right? So that means there is a lot of breast tissue that probably was impacted. Did Was she able to tell you how many, milk ducts she had to sever um, or, could have been impacted
I
in the
don't
surgery, or she did
remember
not
her
talk about that?
talking about that specifically, and
Okay.
if she did, I was
Mhm.
a lot,
Right. Yeah, yeah.
but
And were you in the hospital, like, overnight? Was it an overnight thing, or was it, like,
well,
day surgery?
it was just really quick, like in a few hours. I had surgery in the early morning, and I think I was back at my grandma's house by noon, so
Mhm.
it wasn't bad.
Okay. And were you able to breastfeed on the other side
Yes,
immediately?
yeah.
Okay.
Because I remember they gave me a manual pump at the hospital so that I could pump because I wasn't going home right away. I had the
Okay.
left the baby at grandma's house with someone else watching them, so
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's hard in and of itself, being away from baby for so long when you're, uh, brand new as a mom.
Yeah.
And being 140 miles away from home, was your husband able to travel with you, or you were doing it all on your own?
No, he I drove up there, and he was glad that my grandma was there to help me, and he
Mhm.
kept working, so
Yeah.
'cause like I said, after that he took the time off and he took me to my parents' house, so
Yeah. Yeah. And did you experience nipple pain on the right side as well?
see, I remember experiencing some. I feel like I probably used the nipple shields on both sides at one point, but the left side was just always worse. I feel like it was always
Mhm.
worse in every way. So,
Mm. Mhm. Okay, and then, you did what we call baby-led weaning, which is essentially just offering the baby the foods that you have already, and so you were both breastfeeding and doing baby-led weaning or just eating table foods, until he was about 19 months old, and then what did weaning look like for you?
um, well, I had started. There were some times where I would pump more than I would nurse, depending on if I was trying to go somewhere or do some extra things or whatever. But I always at least nurse some and pumped. And I mean, if there was a day where I didn't pump at all, he was fine. He nursed all day, and sometimes I'd pump once or twice, and he was okay. I think by a year old, he was nursing a few times a day, maybe four, and um, my husband and I took a trip with just the two of us when he was like 14, 15 months old. And so I only pumped for about a week before that trip so that because he stayed with my parents. So he didn't need the milk, but he still was breastfeeding. And so I pumped while we were gone. And then when I got back, he just like nursed and nursed and nursed too. Like, so, so it was a few times a day until I think by the time he was a year and a half, it was a couple times a day. And he started getting upset if I would say, not, not right now, or let's should wait till this. Or then he smacked me one time, and I was like, okay, I think we're done. So I pumped twice a day for a week or two, and then I pumped once a day, and then he's about 19 months old, and that was it. And I already knew I was pregnant with my next one. So
Oh, wow, okay. Yeah, and how did you know that you should go about kind of continuing to pump a little bit, to make sure that you weren't getting overly engorged? Was that something you did instinctually? Did you get advice from somebody?
um I just thought that I should do that because I didn't I mean, I figured cold turkey didn't sound like a good idea. I didn't ask anybody. I just decided that that sounded good. I guess maybe I should talk to people about it, but that's just what I did. Maybe I
No,
asked
yeah.
and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's a good idea." Maybe I did ask people. That could
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that you feel very sensitive about making sure your breasts don't get too full given your
yeah.
experience.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Well, is there anything else about your first experience you feel like is important or relevant before we close out?
I guess I pretty much told most of the story. I think to anyone that's listening, I think something good that you could take from this is that it's not you're not a failure if you end up having to get some formula because I mean, I feel like I tried as hard as I could and that was a
Mm,
very emotional emotional thing. I think maybe moms should think more about that. Like I said, this was my first baby. I didn't really think about it. I just assumed I would breastfeed and everything would be fine. I think every mom should think about if I have to get formula, I'm not a failure because I
mm,
part of me felt like I was a failure. I
mm,
had failed somehow, and don't emotionally do that to yourself.
mm. Yeah, that is so, so true.
I'm not sure what you were
Yeah.
saying. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I know with my first, I had to supplement, and I can still picture. We don't live in that house anymore, but I can still picture sitting in the rocking chair in my son's bedroom, which he never used because he always slept in our bedroom. Um, and my husband saying, do you want me to feed the formula to him? Do you want to do it? And I was like, no, I have to do it. I'm supposed to be the feeder, and just feeling like this should be coming from my own body.
Yes.
Um, and we are just living in a time where we don't get enough support. Some people might choose to do partial breast milk, partial formula, and there's no one right choice for every person. You have to look at the big picture and look internally and say, what do I need to do in this moment, given all the evidence? And sometimes you do need to work with a compassionate care provider to help you work through what your options are. But it does not have to be all or nothing if you don't want it to be. So I love that you were able to get the formula, to use it to help your baby be well fed, and that eventually he didn't even need it anymore, and it wasn't all formula or all breast milk.
Yeah.
How long would you say you used the formula?
Uh, that at least 3 months, maybe a little longer. I mean, I think he started eating food a few times a day around 6 months, but I mean, if we had a can left, we probably used it up. So maybe 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah. Okay. Very good. And about what percentage of your daily feedings was formula? Was it a half, less? Do you remember?
it was, I knew that I wanted to as little as possible. It was less than half for sure. I mean, it was usually only like 1 or 2 bottles a day if he needed it. So, which he did for a little while, but I don't think I ever
Mm,
did more than, maybe 2 or 3 bottles a day at the most.
okay. All right. Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing this first experience. It's it's an intense one. And I think people are going to be really interested to hear um, this story and to hear how it turned out for you. And we're going to close out, and then I'll have you back on the next episode so that we can work through your current baby feeding situation.
Thank you.
If you have ever experienced anything like Ellie, If you have ever experienced anything like Ellie, where a provider did not take you seriously, where people did not understand the intensity of your breastfeeding situation, I want you to know you are not alone and you have done nothing wrong. It is not your fault. You are doing the best you can to feed your baby through an intense and difficult situation, and that is all that you can ask of yourself. It means you are a good parent, and that is all that you can ask of yourself. If you have lingering questions, lingering concerns, and you would like to get those questions answered, if you have lingering questions and concerns, don't keep going thinking they have to go unanswered. If you have lingering questions or concerns, don't continue thinking If you have lingering questions or concerns, don't keep going thinking that there is no one to answer them. I would love to be the person who helps you feel really good about your breastfeeding, who helps you to find the answers to your breastfeeding concerns. Go to my website, www.quabandbirthservices.com. We can book virtually or in person. We can book virtually or in person, and many times I can bill your insurance. See you soon.